Good morning, Internet. Welcome to this rainy vlog today. I have some errands I need to run again, and thought I'd bring you with me. If you're tuning in for the first time, this is my writing process vlog. This is number 7, I believe. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Mike, but I write historical fiction under the pen name of Eli Kale. So let's get into today's vlog. Today I'm just going to briefly talk about the closing stages of the editing process. In the last video I talked about editing your manuscript for the second time through, reading through it, everything from start to finish for a second time. In my experience, it's good to do it a third time. 3 is a nice round number for a lot of things. So when it comes to editing, the second time is usually, at least how I do it, is the time that I reserve for larger changes to my story. If there's any, gaps in the plot or any story details that I left out for whatever reason in the first draft, I add it there. And then this third draft is to kind of clean up any other little snags or iron out any other kinks from your second read through and your second editing. And basically the idea here is to just, make sure the flow of your story is smooth. Because you've been reading through your manuscript a couple times now, you should have it down fairly well to where, as a reader, they can see it and read it and experience it, and not have too many questions in terms of, this doesn't make sense, or why is this happening? This has nothing to do with the story, or whatever like that. So when I get to this point in my writing process, after I get everything story related taken care of, I like to go through the manuscript and use one of the tools in Word called Find. If you aren't aware of what that is, or you haven't used it before, but basically what it is you can type in a word, and it's just basically keywords, and it will find it wherever it is in the manuscript. The number of times it'll allow you to skip to those locations in the script, and that way you can, if you need to find something very quickly, instead of scrolling through, you can just type it in there and then it'll take you right to it. Basically what I'll use that for is to kind of tidy up a few things. For example, in the last video I talked about dialogue and how it's wise to use said as a dialogue tag, but not to rely on it too heavily. So usually the first thing I'll do is I'll type in said in the Find tool, and then I'll see how many times it comes up in my manuscript, and I'll scroll through and see where it's used in the context of that part of the dialogue, whatever's happening in the story. And like I said before, if it's something that I don't want the momentum of the reader, or the reader's momentum to be broken up in reading the story, I will use said instead of a fancier tag or something that's a little more involved. So after I do that, then I'll type in vary, V-E-R-Y. So a lot of times what writers tend to do just out of habit is to write, he ran very fast, or he walked very fast, or he spoke very fast, or something like that. Vary being a modifier. The thing that I like to do is try to take that out and replace vary and then whatever it's preceding, to replace that with something a little bit more, not sophisticated, that's not the word I want to use, but it's just better, it's written a little bit better. So instead of, walked very slowly, you can say ambled. He ambled, she ambled, whatever. That's the idea. You want to try to replace those very phrases with something else. Another specific example that I use the Find tool for is, in my first book, I realized as I was going along later on in the story that I was using the term subcell a lot. Subcell, in this case, I was referring to the smaller group of resistance fighters with which the main character Rien was associated. So instead of using that multiple times, because, and this is with any word that you use over and over again, the reader will pick up on that, and if it's not a very significant word and doesn't have, very significant pertinence to the story, then it's going to stick out like a sore thumb, and the reader's going to wonder why you keep using that word. So what I did was I tried to I found those instances where I said subcell, and I tried to replace it with group or force or squad or something like that, to where it was the same idea of what I wanted to get across, but it's not using the same term over and over again. And just as a general note, that's something to try to consider doing as a writer, is to not rely on, using a lot of the same buzzwords to talk about what you're talking about. So if that makes sense. So however you handle your third read-through is up to you, but after that, again, like I said before, take a break, give your eyes, your mind a break. Again, it's just, it helps you kind of recharge. It takes your mind off of the same, the words that you see over and over again, the same sequence of words, and it allows you to do other things. One of which, what I like to do, is a little bit of house cleaning, and by that I just mean, tending to all the files that you have collected. If you're, doing a lot of research, if your desktop is cluttered with a bunch of things, pictures or whatever that you have collected so far in writing this book, or whatever the project is, try to organize it in a little bit better way. At least I like to do this because I reference things a lot down the road. So I still reference things now while I'm writing my third book. I reference things from book one. I just like to see, because the best way to say it is I don't always use things just for one project. So it's good to kind of, catalog, not necessarily catalog things, but just organize things as you go, and that way you can always easily find them if you need to reference them again or use them for something else. And it just helps not get you sidetracked in trying to find something, or have to, research it again and find it online again. And that's something else too. In my favorites bar on my laptop, I have a lot of things saved, different websites, different things like that, that I reference quite a bit, and that I like to keep on hand. So believe me, if you're not wanting to have to be bogged down later on, or even as you go in a current project, with trying to find things or just having a cluttered mess in general, try to keep things organized. It'll help with more than just making your desktop look nice, or if it's a hard copy, your actual desktop look nice. Something else that's good to do in terms of keeping things organized, and this is more of a story thing, is to have a running list of names that you use in your stories. This is a good practice to do just because that way you won't, have a repeat name in your stories. And especially like in my case, I'm writing a collection of stories, so it would be kind of just something that would stick out, in my opinion, if I had a name of a character in book one. It's not the same character, but the name comes up again in book 4 or 5 or something like that. So readers pick up on that kind of thing, and it's good to just, give that sort of variety to your writing anyway. The last thing I want to mention today is the Dayton Book Expo. I've alluded to that in a few videos before. It's an expo for authors down in Dayton, Ohio, and I'm going to be going as an author instead of just a civilian, I guess, if you want to say, a non-author. It's open to the public, and those who are going to be there as authors are going to have tables set up in the Great Hall of the David H. Ponitz Conference Center. I have the information there. I'll include the link to the Dayton Book Expo website in the description. That way you can check it out if you'd like to go, or if you just are curious about it. But they have book signings, panel discussions. I believe that the panel discussions are held by some authors who are kind of part of the Dayton Book Expo, the team, like who put it together, as well as others that they kind of ask to participate in that. And there are also events and activities that are geared toward the children of any adults who bring their kids to the event. There's like a kids zone, I think that's what they call it. But it's from 11 to 4 on April 25th, so it's only a couple of weeks away. I'm really looking forward to it, and just to see kind of, who's there and who will recognize me, if that'll even happen. We'll see. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to it, and like I said, it's free to the public, so if you're thinking of going and you're in the area, or at least you have that day free, and you are interested in going, really look into it and consider it. I'd love to see you there, and you can come visit my table. I will have, I don't know the number of books yet, I still have some on the way, but around a dozen or so books of Resistant and Unguarded, my first 2 books, as well as a sign-up sheet for free ebooks of those 2 books, as well as my short story volume. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else to tell you about that. But anyway, I'll include the links so you can check it out if you have time, and if you want to go, I'd really love to see you there and have you visit my table. Thanks.